My name is Tony Armour. I am the Dallas Film Commissioner, and today we're excited to have Kesleigh Dougherty with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I didn't want to mess up the name because it's very specific. Even though it's spelled like Dougherty,
Yes.
her Philly husband would hunt me down and hurt me if I pronounced it incorrectly, I'm told.
Yes, we are Doughertys, and that is how we say it.
Okay.
And that discussion ended there.
And what was the maiden name before Dougherty?
Jones. So
Jones.
it was, if you knew me in LA, I was Kesleigh Jones. I got married in August, and now I'm Kesleigh Jones Dougherty. And we're just going with it. And honestly, there were moments where I did not want to change my name, just strictly because I had been a Jones and I'd been working 10 years as Kesleigh Jones. And then we had our daughter, and she got the Dougherty name. And then immediately I was like, okay, I got to change my name.
Yeah, you're like, I guess all this should align.
Yes.
So everybody is no one's confused.
Yep. And I was just like, there can't be two Doughertys and a Jones. There's got to be three of us. So
yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Huge motivation there.
All right, good. Well, besides the name change, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. Yeah,
so I am an editor, film, video editor. I worked in LA for about 10 years in advertising, entertainment marketing, working on TV spots for movies and streaming services. I started as an assistant editor and worked my way up to editor there. And I worked at some agencies, and I actually worked in-house at places like Snapchat and Netflix, and gotten to work on a lot of cool titles. And so then during the pandemic, I wanted to get out of LA, so I moved to Nashville. My family's in Memphis, and I wanted to be close to my parents, but not too close, and started remote working for my company in LA from Nashville. That's where I met my husband, and then his job brought us to Dallas, and we've been in Dallas since October. Yeah.
Okay, so new. You're newer than I am. I've only been really working in the area here for just over a year and 4 months now. I've actually made it through April. So
wow.
So a year and 4 months. So you're new as well.
Yes.
And this is something that I hear a lot. I have so many people reach out to the office and say, "Hey, I just moved to Dallas. Where can I meet more people? Hey, I can do this." And I think it really speaks to the state of the industry that you can just be anywhere in the world that you want and have the same job that you had 5 years ago, basically.
Yeah, it's I think while COVID was a horrible time for the world, it really was a nice wake-up call that for a lot of different industry and people who work primarily over the internet and on computers, we can kind of be anywhere. So I do appreciate that I got to do my time in LA. And
there are many people who feel that way.
And I made my connections, and I had so many great experiences. And it was a great place to live in my 20s. And now I can kind of take those connections anywhere I want to go. And still, I'm still in contact with a couple of my old bosses in LA. Potential freelance work always is cropping up here and there. So it's cool that you can kind of be anywhere now.
Yeah. So when you say your company that you work for now, who do you work for and what exactly are you doing? Because you've done a variety of things from the feature film Strays, and there's a long list on your of credits and stuff that you've listed.
Yeah. So currently I'm working for a company here in Dallas called Holmes Millet Advertising, and so we do a lot of commercial work. We work for a lot of major brands. Mostly, we work with Diageo, which does a lot of liquor distribution. They own a lot of, they own Don Julio, Bailey's, Bullet Whiskey. They work really closely, and I think they were they just acquired Balcones, which is a whiskey distillery in Waco. So I've been doing a lot of kind of commercial work with them. And then before that, I was working. I worked for a company called Rebel, which is run by Benedict Coulter. And I did some freelance work on some ad campaigns for Strays, and I worked a little bit on Blue Beetle with them. Before that, I was at Ammo Creative, which sadly is no longer a company. They went out of business, but that's where I got to work on the Beatles. Oh my gosh, so many titles. The Beatles, Peter Pan and Wendy.
And so this is all primarily on the marketing campaign side of these projects,
marketing,
right?
Social media, strategy, and things like that. Mm-hmm.
And that ties in with the Snapchat background a little bit.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about what is it like? I remember when Snapchat first came out, and I got on there for a heartbeat, and then I just don't have the time, and I think I'm probably too old for it anyways. There's a demographic that kind of more that caters to. It is
funny, and you'd think that it is a demographic thing, but I also think it's a geographical thing, because a lot of people in the middle states use it for full on day-to-day communication.
Really?
Yeah. So I came on to Snapchat, in 2018. They were about to go public. So they brought me on to help with their IPO roadshow campaign that they were going to use to kind of explain what the company was. So it was a lot of they did a lot of international shoots. And we put together this huge piece to show why you should buy stock and why why it was going to be a huge thing. And that was a really crazy experience, and getting to see how the interface of that app works in-house, and all the designers and the graphics people and the VFX people, and getting to kind of be a part of that whole rigmarole, workflow, I guess is a better word.
Yeah.
Was awesome. And it really gave me a huge insight into, especially at that time, how powerful social media was going to continue to be. It wasn't ever going to be just a fad. And really, I mean, when I work on any kind of campaign where I'm doing verticals for a movie, for Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat, because they end up on all of them, they're getting more views than they would on TV.
Sure, of course.
So I put almost more work into that.
Yeah.
And it's almost it's a whole new world. There's no rules to it. So you can really get creative.
No, yeah. As somebody who, I'm not a professional editor, but I've been editing a long time as a filmmaker. When you kind of come into the industry as a filmmaker in general, you do it all, right? You're shooting and directing, editing, all that kind of stuff. And so the whole switch to now having to export videos in a vertical format as opposed to, and it's still, the phone turns sideways, if you turn it, you get a widescreen, you get to see everything. But people's brains just refuse to do that, essentially. And so now we're in the vertical world where everything's vertical. How many different formats do you have to do? Because like you said, there's Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, and they each have slightly different, widths and heights and everything like that. And so are you creating, sort of one type of vertical video, and then you're just cropping in and out and up and down for the different formats? So
it depends on what you're working on. Typically you do a vertical, so that's 1080 by 1920, full on vertical. But like you said, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, we have Reels and Stories and TikToks, and they all are slightly different in where you have to place graphics so they're not interfering with the actual interface of the app. So what used to be 3 deliverables has now become 7. And now on Instagram, they want 4x5s instead of 9x16. So that's a little bit of a different size. And if you're going straight to social media, you really have to be careful with the shot choices. You can't have a big wide explosion because you won't be able to feel the impact of it when it's verticalized. So you really, and then you do you do a lot of pan and scan. You have to do usually a lot of subtitle work because people are watching these during the day at work and they can't have the sound on. So you want to make sure all of your active subtitles are being able to be seen and not getting overwritten by the app. And so there's a lot of extra thought that really goes into it. So you can't just start with a wide 16:9 classic ad format when you're working with social media. A lot of it changes, and you're still working sometimes with studios and clients who don't understand that. And you're like, why can't we use this shot? And you're like, well, I'll show you why. You can't really tell what's going on when you're watching it at a vertical format. It's
so interesting to me, if I look at it from a little bit more of a historical perspective, because I'm old enough to grow up as a kid where you don't have widescreen television, right? It's, a CRT, box, and it's 4x3 format. And so you're watching that. And I remember when I would go get DVDs, that I always still wanted the widescreen and would watch it, cropped top and bottom, because I wanted to see the whole thing. When you're a kid and you can watch something and you see pan and scan, and you're like, oh, pan and scan, and my parents are like, what are you talking about? It's like, can't you see what they're doing? This is supposed to be a widescreen shot. That's when you know you're a film nerd and you're destined to somehow be in the industry. So we've gone from that, where then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we get the widescreen. Everyone has a widescreen television, and even computer monitors went from a 4x3 format computer monitor to 16:9 for computer monitors, so we could see more, so we could do more. And then now everything has circled back around where it's 1970. Where basically, when we're watching videos on our cell phone, we're watching 1970s television.
Yep. And it's funny that you think, and when I'm directing a shoot, I'm always thinking what will this look like in vertical? Because this will inevitably end up on Instagram or Facebook Reels or YouTube, whatever they call them now, YouTube's version of TikTok.
There's shorts or whatever.
Shorts, thank you. How is this going to look? We need to be actively thinking on set. Are we going to be able to use this product shot of this bottle? Or will the logo get like cropped out? Like we can't, and you never want to have to go the full like blurry background behind the shot
Yeah,
thing.
that just looks
like,
terrible, but you see it all the time.
Yeah, and you can tell why they're doing it. They didn't have any other choice because they weren't thinking about shooting vertical. So, it's become a whole subsect of how we advertise and how we can like get butts and seats at the movie theater. They're only seeing it on their TikTok. We got to really take into account like what visually are we portraying to them on this TikTok? Like it's important. Yeah,
and what's interesting, what I've started seeing people do now as well, is they're taking the traditional widescreen video, but within Instagram or whatever, turning it sideways. So that if you're holding your phone like you would normally hold it in that vertical format, the video is actually on its side, but it fills the full frame. So if it's forcing you to literally turn your phone to watch it that way, because yes, it's shot vertically, but they're actually just rotating it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a clever way to get people to actually, do you see that as a trend we're going to see more so that we can fill the frame more basically?
I see it as a trend in certain, like maybe in movies that aren't made for kids.
Yeah.
Because no one's, like our instinct as like millennials and older is to turn the phone, but a lot of people like Gen Z, they don't even want to be bothered to do that. So it really depends on the movie.
Oh, you're so lazy, Gen Z.
They are.
Wherever you are.
Sorry to all my students who are tuning in.
Just turn the phone.
Yeah. What I think is important, and we hammer this home with our clients, is the 6-second rule. If you don't get your person, if they're scrolling in the first 6 seconds, they're going to skip your video. So if they're taking I know this sounds so silly, but if they're literally taking the time to turn and you're putting a little message that says, turn your phone to like experience the full thing, that's 3 seconds gone. Like you might have already lost them.
Yeah.
So it is important to really like, even if you are going to do a full frame ad and have people turn their phone to the side, also creating a vertical ad, because they might just get confused and keep on going. I mean, at the first 6 seconds, and I tell my students this whenever they're editing, like, you got to hook me if you're doing something short form. I had them all cut a trailer this semester as part of their like assignments. And I was like, I don't know, man. I mean, we're 10 seconds in. I don't know what's going on, and that's why we've created bumpers that go before trailers sometimes, or any kind of advertising, a quick 6 second, like, brrr, like edit before, and it says trailer starting now. So people don't skip it.
Right.
Because our attention spans as time goes on and social media is more and more involved in like our day to day, we just don't care. So you got to really like hook them. It's the 6 second rule.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's really interesting. So totally going to date myself on this. Probably no one's going to have any idea what I'm talking about. But there was a show in the late 80s called Max Headroom.
Okay.
If you're familiar with Max Headroom, part of that, it was a futuristic kind of sci-fi set show. And part of it was they were compressing 30-second commercials into like a second, like all the images you would see in a 30-second commercial into a second. And there was like one episode where people's heads were exploding and stuff, and that's where we've gotten to, where we're in the Max Headroom era now, where people's heads are exploding, like too much information like jammed in all at one time.
It's almost like overstimulating, but like that's what people, I mean, and sometimes people don't want to out themselves at work if they're on their phone and they have to turn the phone to the side to look at something. They're not sending an email, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's just always an extra, and they're not hard to do when you're verticalizing. If you have planned and you've shot enough wide shots that you can create vertical out of, like if you zoom in and you can have someone take up the full frame, like, why not just make a vertical?
Yeah.
Like,
well, and you know what I mean? And obviously you can just have your 16:9 video and put it in the vertical frame anyway. So you've got black on top and bottom. And so you can still see it. So if you really want to do it, you can do it that way. You're just not, you're not filling the whole phone, but anymore it's like, it's like all over the place the way people are.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, if I want to watch a trailer the way it's meant to be seen, I'm not going to get on TikTok. I'm going to go to YouTube and I'm going to watch it the right way. But that's because I'm kind of like a snob in that way. I want to see what's fully going on. And like, usually I know who's made it and I'm curious about it. But if I am just casually and it's a movie I hadn't heard of, I'll watch the vertical. But if I really care, I'll go to YouTube and find it.
Yeah, you see the vertical and then you're like, oh, I want to see this trailer. And then I do the same thing. You're like, I'll see it and it piques my interest enough to go find the actual trailer and to watch the full thing in 16:9.
Yeah.
Or even, I pull it up on my YouTube TV app on my 55-inch TV so I can watch it in a large format and not just on the phone.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Isn't it crazy? You can actually have TikTok on your Apple TV now, and you can scroll TikToks on your like actual TV. Like the world is nuts right now. Like there's too much happening.
Well, I have to admit, I do not use TikTok, and I've literally never been on TikTok.
Yeah.
And so I don't see any reason to change that at this point.
I wouldn't if I were you.
Especially since the U.S. government has now decided that it's ripe for banning, and it's like, let's close this thing down.
Yep.
Which I find a little hilarious that everyone who has built their lives on TikTok, it's not going to go away. Something will happen. They'll sell it or whatever else, but it's entertaining to me, at least.
Yeah, you've got these influencers like crying into the camera, like,
Yes.
please don't delete my app. This is how I make money. Yeah.
Well, maybe you should diversify.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so you're teaching at SMU now, and
Yes, I
so
am.
how did that come about? So you've only been here, you said, since October, right?
October. So I went to University of North Carolina School of the Arts, and I graduated in 2014, and I loved that experience. I loved going to film school, and I loved that was my thing, and I got to go to film classes all day. It was a really practical education. I got a lot out of it. My husband is one of the rowing coaches at SMU.
Oh, cool.
So we moved here. He moved here first. We had our baby in September. He moved in October, and then I moved in November. And SMU, it kind of like sparked my interest because he was going to be there. I checked out the website. They had a film program, and I was like, that'd be so fun if I could like extend some like help or knowledge. Maybe they need like maybe not even instructors, but like people on faculty to like help or mentor or whatever. I just sent an email to the department chair, who's Dr. Compare. And I was like, I don't know. I have all this experience. I'm moving here with my husband. My husband's working at SMU.
Yeah.
If you guys need anything or like faculty or what have you, I'd love to help. And I have all these connections, and I'd love to like mentor students and, put them in touch with people and train them up. And it turns out like 2 of the professors were on leave for the spring semester, and he was like, do you want to come on? I was like, absolutely. And I had such a great time, like going back in time in my brain to when I was in school and then putting together my own curriculum. And I was teaching them all sorts of like technical stuff. We went over like a bunch of Avid. I had them edit trailers. They all cut a short film that I had old dailies for. I had them do multicam exercises in Avid and Premiere. I taught them all how to transcode footage. I taught them the post-production hierarchy and assistant editor protocols. And so I think my students are leaving with like a pretty well.
Yeah, that's great because that's real practical, real world knowledge
Yes.
on how that works within the industry. So as far as like Avid, are you cutting on Premiere?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, I think most everyone is using Premiere. A lot of people are shifting to DaVinci Resolve.
Yeah. Lots of good stuff in DaVinci.
Yeah.
And they're really, really upping their game. I was teaching Avid because I was told to, and that's fine. And I don't dislike it. However, if I'm working on something of my own for my own clients, I'll pick Premiere any day.
Yeah.
Any day.
Well, it's funny. It's funny that you say that because I taught, for a couple years as adjunct at the Art Institute in Tampa.
Okay.
And one semester they asked me if I would teach Avid. I was like, I don't know how to use Avid. I was like, I can teach Premiere. And they're like, no, you need to do Avid. And so I taught an Avid class. And I was like, I don't want to teach an Avid class. And they're like, just teach the Avid class.
Yeah.
Because they made me. So.
Right. And Avid is, it is software that works when you need it to work. I like to think of Avid as like your grandfather who's like, back in my day. And then your Premiere is like your cool uncle who's like, yeah, no, you can do that, but you can also do it this way and it's faster and you won't want to rip your hair out. And then DaVinci is kind of like your like cousin who's like 5 or 7 years older who you just like want to be when you grow up. So like that's how I like to kind of like
that's funny
categorize them.
Yeah, that's makes perfect sense because Avid is the original editing software. That's what you had to learn on. And I remember there was like it was like a real thing to like learn how to edit on an Avid. So when Premiere Pro first came out and first launched, and you could just buy the box with the CD or DVD in it and then load it up and start editing. That's how I started, was on like Premiere version 1 forever ago. And so, I've kind of grown up with Premiere at that point.
Totally. I started in Final Cut 7.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was a little hesitant about Premiere, this was back in school, I was like Final Cut 7, like ride or die. I remember when they were talking about Final Cut 10, everyone was like, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be great. And then it just turned into like this like dumb Apple software that like stay-at-home dads cut their like kids' soccer videos on. So that was disappointing. But when I realized in Premiere, you can preload the Final Cut 7 keyboard.
Yeah.
that was it for me.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm in. I'm all in. Here's all. And you can even do the Avid keyboard. You can do the Premiere like native keyboard. You can make your own keyboard. Doesn't matter. But I was like, all my chips are in on Premiere now. Like,
well, that was really where, Final Cut lost itself.
It did.
Because it was the standard for professionals in the industry. That's just people used Final Cut.
Yeah.
And if you're using Premiere, like, why are you using Premiere?
I remember being like, if Final Cut 10 is as good as everyone says, cool. But if there's nothing broken on Final Cut 7, why do we have to fix it? And then they just stopped making it. That was so sad. I know some companies that like hung on to Final Cut 7
for a long time.
Oh, up until I was hearing about people working in it until like 2017.
Yeah.
And then finally they would switch over to Premiere, but it was like Vulcan death grip on like Final Cut 7. Nobody wanted to let it go.
Yeah, because you just had to. They were just like, it's not supported anymore. It's falling so far behind the other things you can do.
Yeah.
And I am blown away. And again, I don't edit like I used to or pay that much attention, but I'll still hop on and do little things here and there. And I thank God for YouTube because
YouTube University?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll still need to be like, how do you do this? Like I'll forget because I haven't done something in a long time or I want to do something new. You go on, it's like, oh, okay, that's super easy. And you just do it. But now all the new tools, and this is not a commercial for Premiere by any chance.
No, I would totally do a commercial.
Yeah. I was just like, but even just like, a couple years ago, whatever it was, when the transcription thing, when they did that, when you could do that and create the captions, I was like, oh, this is over. Like, this is it. Like, that alone was a massive, massive change in the industry.
I loved that. Yeah. I love that if I'm working. So I just did like a multi-source kind of fake trailer. It was like a Get Hype piece that a company's using for one of their like conferences. And I just pulled a bunch of scenes from movies that I loved. And I'm trying to do like a talk back piece where the characters are talking to each other. And instead of having to watch everything, I laid them all out in a sequence in Premiere and I was like, transcribe. And then I was just searching words. Oh my gosh, it was a game changer. But AI is also a game changer because I can go to ChatGPT and be like, somewhere in the Breakfast Club, they say whatever, like, do you remember where? And can you tell me where and what character says it? And then you could take that to YouTube and you can pull your clips. So like the way we work is just, I was really like weird about AI and now I'm like, AI.
Oh, I'm all in. I'm all in on it. And not from a perspective of like it doing the work because it can't do the work.
It can't.
Like people are worried. They're like, oh, it's going to, yes, it's going to continue to improve, but it's not creative at all. It can't do anything creatively, but it can just give you the information where it's like, hey, do you want to write a report or write a memo? It's like, will you give me a summary report, include all this information in it and go da-da-da-da-da-da. And you're feeding the information you want.
It's your ideas.
You just give it a bunch of garbage and say, put it together in a format. And then you can go in and change it and make whatever you want. But the time saver, something that would have taken hours to write can be done in 15 minutes. Yeah,
or even just checking grammar or things like that. Like Grammarly is great. Until AI can have a full human experience, I'm not worried about it coming from my job.
No.
So,
and it's going to be like anything, like Uber getting rid of taxis.
Sure.
Like grocery stores getting rid of the milkman. When there's always going to be a job that just doesn't exist anymore because the world has moved forward and technology changes. But
have you seen the trailer that AI cut? They had AI cut its own trailer.
Oh, really?
It's
a trailer for what?
It's a fake movie where AI robots take over the world and enslave the human race. What else do you think it's about? And they didn't give it any prompts or anything. They gave it a bunch of trailers, like action trailers to watch.
Oh.
And it chucked out. It was outrageous. It was horrible, but it was also hilarious that people think that it's this close to
No, it's more fun. It's more funny than anything.
Yeah.
Like what software were they using for that?
Oh, I'd have to look it back up. I had somebody on my LinkedIn posted it outraged. And I was like, it's not even close to understanding what A, a movie is, and B, how characters in a movie are real life humans with emotions and it's just funny that there's some people who are terrified of AI.
Everybody likes to have a boogeyman. So,
yeah, exactly.
But I'm not worried about AI taking my job. Good luck, AI, being a film commissioner.
You just keep checking the grammar of my emails, Mr. AI, and we'll be good to go.
Yes, exactly.
And keep transcribing all of my clips for me. Thank you.
Yeah. So you were talking about how much you actually enjoyed working at university level and working with college students. Talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. So the first day I walked in, and this was just a new teacher I should have checked all the equipment first. We had some technical errors the first day that really I left that class being I feel like I blacked out. I was like, what just happened? And I think, it's kind of when you see an animal out in the wild and people are like, no, don't worry. it's just as scared of you as you are of it. That's how I felt with these students. And my class was primarily seniors, and they're all hip and young and you see them and you're like, I used to be young and cool, and you're staring at me and I'm staring at you.
You're still young and cool. Yeah, you're all good.
You're staring at me, I'm staring at you, and you're expecting me to teach you. So there was the first class, and I'm sure if you called up any of my students, they'd be like, oh yeah, that was hilarious, because the projector wasn't working, and then I couldn't get the audio to come out.
Right.
And then I literally filled class by having them read my syllabus line by line. And they were all like, we could just read this on our own time. Anyway, but as we kind of got into it and we fixed all the technical problems, I just it is so cool to see people learn and know that you had a hand in that, to pick up a software, and a lot of them picked it all up really quickly, and seeing the skill set and being like, you guys are better than I was at that age. You know what I mean? It's just you get it's a lighthearted, positive feeling to know that you're helping the next generation with actual practical skills that if they are going to pursue a career in the film world will serve them. And I tell my kids, this will help you if you're going to be a director. This will help you if you're going to be a cinematographer. You're going to start to understand performance. You're going to start to understand coverage. You're going to start to understand what kind of angles will really make this sing. So editing will it'll help you be a better writer. It'll help you be a better costume designer. It'll help you do everything better. Yeah. Because it's the final rewrite, Yep. So
yeah, absolutely. So you said North Carolina School for the Arts, where you went to school, right? Mm-hmm. And you went to film school.
Yes, I was at the School of Filmmaking.
Yeah. So was there a particular focus where you were on a track for one thing? What was it that led you to editing? Because when you go to film school, you're doing a little of everything,
sure.
Right?
So the way they had the program set up there, and I love this, the way they do it, it feels more like a trade school, because you go in your freshman year and you try everything. You're doing classes in all of the stuff. And then you can kind of pick two directions you want to go in for your second year. So I picked screenwriting and editing. And I went to film school thinking I wanted to be a cinematographer. Yeah. And quickly, I was like, this is too much equipment. And we had to do a equipment safety test. And one of the assignments in the test, it's a physical test, is to wrap a cord the right way, with the cord memory. Yes. And half an hour after the class ends, I'm still working on it. And my professor's like, you know what? I'll just give you a passing grade if we don't have to do this anymore. I was like, sounds good. So I went screenwriting and editing. And then they don't do this anymore. I think they got too many complaints. There was this thing called, we called it the sophomore slaughter, where you could apply for your discipline. There's 10 spots in each discipline. And then everyone else could either go interdisciplinary, which meant you were just getting a well-rounded filmmaking BFA, or you go this track. And so you have a specialized BFA in editing and sound design or whatever. And I got one of the 10 spots. So that was great. So I picked editing. And so your junior and senior year, you were just doing all of your filmmaking classes or editing, and you can also add on electives any kind of cinema history class. Sure. So I did I got really into the French New Wave. I was a very cool kid.
That's a very college student kind of thing.
Yes.
I am only watching French New Wave for the next 6 months.
I tried so hard to get my kids to I wanted them to do a whole analysis on Breathless, because that's the first film with jump cuts in it. And they're like, oh, we watched this 2 years ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, no. I really wanted to talk to you guys about this. So yeah, and so I came out of it with a really specialized, by the time you're a senior, you get a 15-minute short film, you're doing a 5:1 mix, you're editing it, you're color correcting it. So you, as the editor in the editing discipline, are kind of doing all of the post-production.
That's awesome.
So that was great.
That's very cool. I taught a class, a history of film class, and at one point during the class, one of the students said, are we ever going to watch anything in color? And I said, ooh, not with that attitude.
Now you're not.
Now, definitely not.
Just because
3 more weeks of black and white. Thank you.
Yeah. Just because you said that? Absolutely not. Nope. In fact, we're going to go back and watch even older black and white movies.
That's right. Yeah. How old can we go? Yeah. Which, off topic a little bit, but have you watched Ripley on Netflix, speaking of black and white?
I haven't.
Has anybody told you to watch Ripley yet?
No.
Oh, you should definitely watch Ripley then.
I will. Yeah. I'll watch it. I'll let you know what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's all black and white, set in 1961. Yeah. And then not just the cinematography and the way that it's set, but the production design is so good. Everything feels so 1961, down to the thread count and the jackets
Oh
they're
my
wearing
gosh,
or
I
whatever.
love
You
that.
can just tell that they put in so much care.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'll watch
So
it.
that's just a side note on Black and White. A couple of people had told me about it, and then I started checking out, and I was like, oh, this is great. And it's kind of based off of The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to yell if that peaked. I know what peaking is. Yeah, that's great. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll watch that.
Apparently,
for sure.
there was a whole Ripley book series that the woman who wrote that did, and so it's based off that series. And it's an 8-episode. I have the last episode still yet to watch.
Oh my gosh, how
so I don't know what
exciting for
happens.
you.
I'll watch it this weekend.
No spoilers. I will
see.
say, recently I've been, I'm outing myself, and I'm really into like reality TV, and I've been really into the whole Vanderpump Rules scandal saga, which we shouldn't talk about on something as
Well, I would have no frame of reference to even carry that conversation with you. So
I could have a conversation with myself, but so I'm outing myself. I have not been watching as much cinema as I should, but I have spent most of my life watching it. So I was giving myself a little brain break.
I mean, you
there.
you had the whole French New Wave thing in college, and now that you're like, now I'm an adult, I can watch Vanderpump Rules.
Now I can just let my brain rot for a little while. So
No, you're perfectly allowed to do that. There is a lot of reality TV that shoots in the Dallas area.
Yeah.
A lot.
There were some Real Housewives here at some
unscripted,
point.
I should say. Nobody likes reality TV.
Unscripted.
It's unscripted.
Yeah.
It's just call it reality TV.
It's got its own category at the Emmys now. Best unscripted television series or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what qualifies as best. Is that not as bad as a train wreck as others? Or?
I think the more slaps, the better it is.
Okay, good.
The more face.
That's what I thought. So that was how you ended up being an editor. That was sort of a track that you took, and you obviously enjoyed it, because if you'd have been a year in, or a semester into your junior year, and be like, oh my God, do I have to continue doing this for another year and a half? That would have been tough. Would you have been able to get out if you wanted to?
I probably could have gone like interdisciplinary or something. I didn't want to.
Yeah,
and what else was really cool, and I love to see, and I mentioned this to my dad when I started teaching. I was like over half my class is women, because I was the only girl in my editing class. So I was like, this is incredible. And I was so excited. And like, I had so many talented girls come through. I've met so many awesome, female editors. And I don't mean to get on the whole, but it's just been great to kind of see that shift and be a part of the shift.
Yeah.
Because if you were to ask women 20 years ago, I mean, it's funny because when we first started to edit film, it was mostly women doing it and actually doing the color correction, because we were more precise. We had better vision. We could see colors more according to the science.
Patience than us
had more patience.
Impatient men.
And then all of a sudden it became a dude's job.
Yeah.
And so seeing women more and more step in.
The guys just came out of the room, pushed the women to the floor, and be like, out of the way, I'm editing now.
Yep, I'm a man and I'm smart now. So that's been a really cool shift that I've seen. And I love that. I loved that even back then when I was the only woman in my editing class, it never felt like I was in a separate category.
Yeah.
And I really liked the competition.
Yeah.
If you ask anybody I went to school with, I liked to be the best, and I liked to have the best grades, and I liked to have the best edits. And if my edit wasn't good, I had to know why, so I could immediately go and fix it. Which is hilarious because a lot of editing is super subjective, and it's just based on genre and your director. It's not a sole activity.
Yeah,
right?
it's hard to, once you get past the technical aspects of editing, then it's just story choice. It really is hard to grade people and say this. It's one of those things you almost can't, if you're grading, you'd be like, well, this is just the story's told better, right? These selections you made, these are just better choices from a technical standpoint with your L cuts and J cuts and all that other kind of stuff. Fine, you're good with all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that's what I did a lot of my grading this year. I was I really can't tell them their story is bad because it's not. But what I can do is say, oh, you kind of missed the mark here on some sound design I would have liked.
Yeah.
The room tone drops here. You cut away from her too quickly here. A word drops out here. And so that's how I was grading because, that's your story that you want to tell. Who am I to be nope, wrong, not good.
Well, and especially if you're not sitting there seeing all the footage and knowing what the choices are and well, we didn't have this shot or this shot was out of focus or we would have done this or, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and you never know. Even when you're watching just as an audience member, in good editing, I think you don't notice it, but you can also participate and get involved in the story in a way where you're not picking up on editorial style, right? So who am I to sit here and say I don't like that. I don't like how that made me feel. Well, it made you feel something,
Yeah.
you know? So,
What always throws me off is when I see bad ADR.
yeah. I love the off-screen ADR where you're like, that's ADR.
I was just going to say, where you see the back of somebody's head,
Yep.
and they're talking and be like, oh, that was added later because it doesn't.
Wait, and then like, which camera am I, when you see the head doing it, and you're like, that's not how you would move your head to like say.
In this conversation, I wouldn't do this. Yeah.
Yeah, and that happens a lot in unscripted.
Oh, sure.
As an expert in the genre now, that happens so much. And you can tell they're like throwing all the sound to like the left speaker to make it sound like it's like naturally coming from off screen. And you're just like, no, that's just, it's not good. And it's even worse when you catch it in like a movie or like a TV show. That's
I've seen it in scripted TV series where you're like, oh man, come on. Or even, I'm watching something with my girlfriend and she's just looking on her face like, oh, something's not, but she can't place what's right. And I was like, the ADR is off. Like there's a reason that you think something's weird here. It's because it's bad. They did a bad job with this. And somehow it still made it into this project.
Yeah, because sometimes there's just no other option. Like there's no other way to finish the scene or make it make sense. Yeah. So you have to like,
they're like, we hope nobody notices or it's short enough. Don't worry about it. Just put it in. Let's go. Yeah. It's one bit, move on.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of why I liked working on I did like a lot of stuff. I did edits for the Barbie show that's on Netflix. Like it's a kid's show. And cartoons, working with like.
I was going to say that's animated, right?
Yeah, it's animated. Yeah. But throwing voices and like adding lines to the same character from a different scene is so much easier with anime because their mouths just go like. And you just throw it in and you believe it, So that there's the difference there where it actually like works. I
want to start talking like that in real life.
Yeah, their mouths do like 4 movements and it's like, and you're like, okay, great. I'm just going to make you say whatever I want and no one's going to question it because you're a cartoon.
How many animated projects have you done?
Oof. So many. I mean, one of our main clients at Ammo was Mattel. Mattel made all these shows that Netflix would show. So like Thomas the Train, Barbie, so many. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I did a bunch of spots for the TV show version. And it's just a really fun. I like working on kid stuff. I've liked working on kid stuff since before I had a kid.
Yeah.
To me, it's just like fun, and you can do all sorts of like crazy sound design. You can do the fake ADR tricks. Nobody even questions it. Not even your clients. They don't even notice. So, it's really fun to work on kid stuff. Yeah. Like some people don't like to do it. I loved to work on kid stuff.
Well, and you did Strays as well, which is a talking dog movie. But it's not just like that's not a kid friendly talking dog movie. That's like a rated R. Will
Do not
Ferrell.
let your kids see Strays.
Turn the volume down.
Nuts. Yeah, you can turn the volume down and let the dogs run around. Strays was a really cool experience. I got to do that with a good friend of mine, Kyle McKinney, who's a creative director at Rebel. He brought me on for that. And the cool thing about doing social spots is there really are no rules, but you can't put the swearing in the spot. So there was like a lot of bleeping, and that was fun because I was matching like bleeps to the music. Like I was having like holy bleep like on a hit in the music. So like that kind of stuff is fun. You can also do the fake ADR trick on any kind of talking animal.
Of course.
No one's going to
talking animals definitely.
And say that's in an accurate way that dog's mouth would move if he was saying that word. So it was a really fun movie to work on. Really well done. Like it kind of made me emotional. It was hilarious and also like really tugged at your heart. I don't know if you've seen Strays.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, it kind of like there are moments where you're like, oh, it's just so sad that like he loves his owner so much and the owner does not like him at all. Like just depressing. But he gets it in the end. So.
I will cry at 99% of dog movies.
Yeah.
Like if it's a movie with a dog in it, I almost won't even see them anymore because I just know there's sad dog part. And then I'm like, I don't want to cry because of the sad dog movie. I've started crying a lot more in my old age when it comes to watching film and television.
Yeah.
Have you ever cried on a plane, watching something on a plane? Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I like cry.
Austin in the room here is shaking his head. No, I totally have.
I cry at like movies with kids, like parents and children and babies. Oh my gosh. Like, just it kills me. Yeah, it's like things start to shift as you grow and you start to appreciate movies that like I couldn't watch Homeward Bound now like ever again. That's like I can never ever see that movie again. Like just because you're like it would destroy me for at least 5 days. That would be all I thought about. So
have you ever seen My Dog Skip?
Yes.
The part where he yells at his dog and makes him go away. Oh, I'm just like that whole part right there.
Wait, no, the part where Skip like passes away. Oh,
Spoiler alert for the film from 1999.
Sorry, guys.
Anybody's seen it? 2000 or whatever year it was.
Yeah,
it's been a long time ago.
Can we put a spoiler alert on this podcast episode? Great.
Spoiler alert on My Dog Skip if you haven't seen it.
That book was sad too.
I haven't read the book.
They really stayed true to the book.
Yeah, I really liked the movie, but same reason I can't watch it again because I just don't feel like crying.
Yeah. What else can I not watch again? Because I would feel like crying. I have a hard time with Titanic still.
I've never seen Titanic.
What?
I know. Isn't that strange?
That just feels illegal.
It does. But at one point, I remember when the film came out, and I was like, the boat sinks. I know what happens. And I just didn't have a desire to see it.
Yeah.
And so I just never did. And now it's gotten to the point where, it's 25 years later.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I might as well just never see it because I can always say, I've never seen Titanic. And then people have that look on their face.
Yeah. No, I'm not judging you or anything.
No, that's okay.
It was so cool as a kid when my parents bought the VHS because it was 2 VHSs in one case.
Yeah, it's a good long movie.
That was nuts. Like, that was crazy how they needed 2 VHSs.
This is all day we're going to spend watching this boat sink.
Yeah. Gosh, it was one of those like core, I like to call them like core movie memory moments. Yeah. Like I first saw it when I was like 13 and I just remember I was like, I can never watch this again because I'll never feel like how I feel right now, like as a 13-year-old. I watch it like once a year now. I used to watch it like every November. That was like a weird thing I like to do. But yeah, that movie, I always cry. I know exactly what's going to happen. Yeah. Like, and I always cry.
Well, there's something about, and it's the reason that we like film and television stuff, right? It's that emotional experience that we get that a lot of times it reminds you, it's not just the film itself, it's the time and place when you originally saw that. Wherever you were at in your life, whatever it might be, you're going through a breakup, you had something this happen, you had whatever happened, and you see this film and it makes you feel good or it makes you feel bad. And so then that's embedded sort of into your mind, into your emotions. So then when you see it years later, it brings all of that back for some reasons. To me, I find that really interesting about it. And it's why, so much when we watch things when we're kids, we have so much nostalgia for them that when we're older, I mean, look at Top Gun, for God's sakes, what that did, like the second movie, because just there's a whole generation of people like myself who grew up on the original Top Gun, and then we get a sequel? Come on, so of course it's going to make $1 billion.
Of course. And everyone was kind of like, is it going to be good? I really hope it's going to be good. And then it was.
It actually was good. So that was like a benefit. It wasn't just like, unfortunately, something like Star Wars that we all loved growing up. And then
they really just oversaturated that, like to the point where like I was like all about it. And then I just wasn't. Yeah. I was like, I'm over it. I'm over the 10 episode series. I think I really tapped out. I tapped out. Which one was about little Leia and
Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Kenobi series.
Yeah, I definitely didn't watch Boba Fett.
No.
But I tapped out like 2 episodes in. I was like, I think I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. You know what you need to do? So have you heard of, there's this guy in LA, young dude, he's in his mid-20s, Kai Patterson.
Yes.
Yeah. So he took the Obi-Wan series and the Boba Fett series and cut them both down into a 2.5-hour movie.
Oh, perfect. I see that I can do.
And when you watch it, it is, to speak to the power of editing, right?
Yeah.
This is a good way to wrap this all up. Just circle back around to the actual topic.
Exactly.
Is that he took this 8-episode series that was not very well done, turned it into a 2.5-hour movie, and it's really good. I mean, and more than just like re-editing, like changing music and doing a lot of little things like that. And you can find it online. You can literally go to the guy's website. And I've probably talked about it on this podcast before because I'm impressed by it. Austin's shaking his head. It's like, stop talking about this guy. This guy needs to pay me $1 every time I bring him up on the...
We need to get him on the podcast.
Right, maybe we
Austin.
should. That's a great point, Austin. Make it happen. Reach out to Kai Patterson.
I'm sure he'd do it.
Tell him we want him on the Dallas. Tell him we had Roger Deakins on and he can't say no to that after that. No one says no after.
Tell him you had Kesleigh Dougherty on and he's going to be like, who?
Yes. Yeah. So he did such a great job like re-editing these shows that made them actually entertaining. And you look at that and you come on, Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Like you can't do better.
I know. And that does speak to the power of editing. You can, and that's why they call it the final rewrite. You can take a total train wreck of a movie and a shoot and a script and like really fix it up. Yeah. And they recut Mad Max after the trailer got, like the trailer and the movie did not match like.
Which Mad Max?
Oh, sorry, 2015.
Here? The 2015 one. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that trailer came out. The vibe was awesome. Everyone was jazzed.
Yeah.
The film had a completely different vibe. They recut the entire film
To match the vibe of the trailer.
You can fix a train wreck in editing. Like you can, that's why we still do test audiences. That's why.
And there's so much that's like now I think the Captain America 4 has been in reshoots for months and months and months. They're practically reshooting the entire film because test audiences like were not happy with whatever they did to it.
Yeah. It's, it's an art. Editing is an art.
It really is. I mean, it really is. You really can save or destroy a film in the editing. And so we just wrapped up. I run a film festival in Florida that I founded. We just wrapped up our 19th year.
Wow.
And thank you. And one of the things that, always tell filmmakers when they're submitting films to the festival is, if somebody submits like a 22-minute short film, I'm like, this is not a short film.
Yeah.
I was like, this is 22 minutes. I guarantee you've got an awesome 10-minute story in here.
Yeah.
Like if you could chop this, but they don't, in their mind, they don't think, they're like, but I'm leaving so much out. It's like, no, you're putting more in by really reducing it and cutting it down. And even we like to really try and support independent filmmakers and like up and coming filmmakers. And there was like this 21-year-old kid who had made a feature film, like no budget, went out and shot and did it and created a feature film, but it was like 3 hours long. And I was like, if you could take your 3-hour movie and chop it down to 100, an hour 45, we'll put it in the festival because I want to support you as a young up and coming filmmaker. And normally don't do that kind of feedback where, you're giving them that. But the kid like that coming up and just trying to figure it out, like make it an hour 45. You have to cut this thing in half. And I guarantee it's a better movie.
100%. Like just because you can make a 3-hour movie, does that mean you should make a 3-hour movie?
Right.
Like, do we need it all?
Are you going to go talk to Scorsese now?
Or half of it is like, and then like you get to the point, like, So I agree with that. Editing, slice and dice, baby. Get it out of there. Like Walter Murch said, like, it's harder to know what not to cut, than what to cut. So just pick out the story and leave the rest on the table. That's why we leave it on the floor. We don't need it. That's why I like trailers in short form, because you got to get it in there in 2 minutes. Yeah.
Well, this is a good way to wrap it up. Before we wrap up, what are you working on next?
Oh, gosh. I mean, currently I'm working on a commercial for Balcones, which is the brand owned by Diageo, the distillery in Waco I was talking about.
You get free booze working for this company? You have like cases showing up on your front door?
Yeah, we have a ton of cases at the office. Yeah.
Dude, that's
so that's cool. I'm doing my day-to-day in advertising. I'm spending time with my baby. So I do have some calls into some places in LA, and we'll just see what comes next. But
do you want to edit a feature? Like, is that like in the cards for you?
I would like, there used to be a part of me that was like, no, never. My ADD would not allow me to work on a feature. It's just too much to do. But I just cut a short that was at Dances with Films last year, and I really enjoyed getting back into narrative. So it's not something I wouldn't say yes to. I would say yes to cutting a feature if I like vibed with it.
Yeah, it was something you really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much
Thanks for having me.
Being on the podcast. That was great.
This was so much fun.
That went really fast.
Can I say goodbye to all the cameras? Yeah.
You can. Do you ever individually? Camera 1.
Goodbye.
Camera 2.
Oh,
camera
there's
3.
one right here. Bye. All right.
You're giving Spider too much editing work. He's live editing though. Like as you're doing it, he's like boop, 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 boop.
Spider,